Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another episode of In Case You Missed It. Hope you're all doing well and have had a good week. Today we're going to be talking about Hakim, Ziyech and Chelsea and their brilliant statement yesterday on their website. But before we get into any of that, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Hit that like button as well if you're excited to see Hakim Ziyech finally become a Chelsea player, because I spoke on In Case You Missed It a few weeks back about sort of this concern because of the current pandemic and suspension of football pretty much everywhere, that Ziyech, if the Eredivisie season was to continue and they'd hope to complete it like the Premier League does, we could have an issue with Ziyech joining Chelsea on July the 1st, which was expected. But on Friday, the Dutch FA confirmed that the Eridivisie's 2019-20 season would be cancelled. With the decision to null and void the competition, Chelsea signed Hakim Ziyech from Ajax earlier in the season, with the Moroccan joining up with his new team ahead of the start of the next season. Now, Ziyech gave some quotes to a Dutch publication about the null and void decision and also becoming a Chelsea player pretty soon. After I signed the contract, that was it on July 1st. I am a Chelsea player. I haven't given it another thought. It was nice for me to have some clarity. Nobody knows exactly what will happen to the transfer market. Clubs will be more anxious to attract players for large transfer fees. The question is when countries will really open again and I can safely start there. Then there is indeed the competition which is played there, but I have no influence on that. I will see. I think that fundamentally this is good news. I think it, we talk about complications and fears I'm sure Chelsea would have had during this unpredictable situation. And I think the fact that it wasn't unavoided the Eredivisie season, I don't know if that's going to be a trend across Europe. I don't think it will be, because, you look at the Bundesliga are trying to start their league again. Premier League, it seems every day now we're starting to hear news about them restarting it behind closed doors. We're not entirely sure on the details behind that and if the UK government will allow that to happen. That's something that I'm sure we'll get some clarity on hopefully pretty soon. But it was a strong decision by the Eredivisie, and it sort of does benefit Chelsea in the sense that Ziyech will now be a Chelsea player on July the 1st. No matter what happens with the Premier League, if it overlaps that date, he will still be a Chelsea player by then. And the concern was, I don't think the concern was ever from anyone that Ziyech would never become a Chelsea player and the deal would fall through and all of that. I think the concern was from Chelsea, was from a financial aspect of having to take on Ziyech's wages. If Eredivisie is still going on, Ajax still have that player, they still have to have him to complete that season. All of these weird sort of rare complications and sort of logistics that you have to take into account, and we saw yesterday of Giroud extending his contract, the uncertainty over some other contracts. That's good news. And today, talking about Ziyech, him becoming a Chelsea player, it's good to see he's ready to become a Chelsea player. We may have to wait as long as October to see him finally in a Chelsea shirt, but it is an exciting thing. And now we can start to maybe relax and talk a little bit more about Ziyech, how he'll fit into Chelsea's system. I've talked a lot about that. Give me your opinions on Ziyech, this news. How do you think the Premier League will be concluded? Let me know in the comments below. And following up on that, I want to talk about Chelsea's statement that they released yesterday about the current pandemic and what they've been doing and what they're going to commit to do in the future. It was an exceptional statement. It really was. It sort of came out of the blue. I don't think a lot of us were expecting it. I spoke on Let's Talk Chelsea about the player wage cuts and that being agreed to 10%, and you expected maybe the club will confirm that. But this statement very much changed that situation, and not only about the wage cuts, which a lot of the media took out and took as sort of the big sort of headline about this. There is so much to go into. Now, just to break down, there was so much in here. I'm just going through some bullet points about what Chelsea did announce and what they're going to commit to. 128 hotel rooms available for healthcare staff, 81,000 meals for vulnerable people, paying 100% of all staff wages without relying on the government furlough scheme, paying match day staff as if the games had gone ahead, reimbursing fans up to 350 each for the cancelled Munich trip, reimbursing the cost of tickets for any home matches which are not played, instead of wage cuts for players, directing them to continue funding charities that they, players themselves, had already started to do, continue support to UK charity Refuge to raise awareness and valuable funds to support women and children experiencing domestic abuse, and lastly, continued great work of the Chelsea Foundation, providing education to children as well as help for vulnerable people and local food banks. Astonishing, really. And I think yesterday, as was expressed by pretty much a lot of Chelsea fans on social media, and I'm sure, Chelsea fan watching this, it was a proud day to be a Chelsea fan. In the current troubling times, I do think Chelsea deserve monumental credit for what they've done. I think they've acted with class, with humanity, with compassion. I think all the things as a fan, as a supporter, you care about. It's not only about helping Chelsea and thinking about the best thing for Chelsea on the pitch, which of course they should be thinking about, as a business, but also in these troubling times, thinking about the wider community, thinking about those in need, assisting the healthcare staff, which truly do need it right now, assisting those who could be in trouble, assisting charities. And my problem was, I think I've got to give credit to as well journalists, to the likes of Ollie Holt, John Cross, Paul Hayward, Henry Winter, all of them giving massive praise to Chelsea on Twitter, which I think is valuable. But on the side of that, there were a few things that were taken out of context, I think, from some, sort of taking the headline of the wage cuts and that being a problem. Matt Law did originally put that, but then he said, this is not to sort of demean Chelsea's work. This is just talking about the current situation and the player wage cuts, which has changed. We thought it was going to be a 10%, as the club announced yesterday. It's not. But instead, they're urging players to donate their own money to charities, which we've seen a lot. I think footballers in general, not just Chelsea players, I think footballers in general, I think for the most part, I think have really acted well during this crisis in terms of charity work. And I think it's really honourable that the club have said, instead of, wage cuts to help us, instead help charities that need it right now. The fact that the club have never sort of made a mistake during this, they haven't backtracked like other clubs. And as I said the other day, this is not about point scoring, but I just think when I see in the past as a fan, we get called classless, we get accused of ruining football and all of that nonsense. I think during a time of need for this country, I think Chelsea and Roman Abramovich, who hasn't been allowed back in this country yet, should be proud of what they've done. It is the human thing to do. They're in a privileged position, people like Roman Abramovich, but to still do that when other big clubs haven't, I think is a valuable thing. And hopefully it does get recognised in the future. So I'm pretty much just being proud to be a Chelsea supporter. And I think all of those initiatives are absolutely valuable. I think in terms of the ticket thing of reimbursing those fans, I think is very important in the current times when we've seen ticket price issues in the past. And of course, the NHS and charity work is essential during the current time. But that is it for this episode of In Case You Missed It. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.